Welcome to the Stacked Supplement Podcast, the premier source for supplement news and reviews.
We are back with another Stacked Supplement Podcast interview, and today we have probably one of the most star-studded special guests I've had so far, and one of the fastest rising brands. It is Aaron Singerman from Redcon1. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Shane. I appreciate it, and I appreciate the introduction. I'm glad to be one of the most star-studded guys you've had. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool and surreal.
It's I think it's surreal for me because I messaged you the other day, and you do this when you share kind of like a throwback on your social media, and every time I see it, because Stack's been around for 10 years, but I don't think I've seen a brand. No, I haven't seen a brand that's had that rise as fast as Redcon1. And I remember when you sent me that picture, like, you're like, what do you think this is? And I was like, I didn't think much of it. And I was like, wait a fucking second. This is his brand. And it was like a teaser, and it didn't have anything in it. And I still remember, and I was like, is it your brand? And you were still acting very vague. And I was like, okay, so we shared it. And then it kind of was 13 products out of the gate. Was it 11 or 13?
Yeah.
13. And shit just blew up from there. How, like, I'll ask you a simple question. You're probably going to give me the answer. I think you are. Did you expect it to grow, Redcon1? Did you expect it to grow anywhere near as fast as it did?
No, I didn't. I mean, my past company that I was leaving, Blackstone, when I left Blackstone, I owned 35% of Blackstone. And so it was me and my partner, PJ, and then there was a silent partner, this guy, Joseph Safina. And so I figured, like, okay, so Blackstone is doing, at the time I was doing a little under $20 million in revenue. And so I was like, okay, well, 35% of that, is whatever, $6.5 million. And I'm like, I think I could do a brand that could make $6.5 million in revenue. I think I could. I think, like, that's possible for a year. And I think I could do it all on my own, right? And have no partners. And that really was the initial intention, where of course I wanted to be big, right? I don't think I would ever have told you I want to be the biggest at that point, to be the biggest supplement brand in history. But I think sports supplement brand, I don't think I would have said that out loud. And I'm not sure that I was thinking it at the time. So my big goal was, if I could just do $6.5 million a year in revenue, I'm basically exactly where I was, and I have no partners, which sounded like a huge win at the time,
And I'm assuming you did that, in the first year?
Oh, we did more than the first year. Yeah, we did more than the first year. Yeah, we did. Yeah, it was crazy. Now, we did our first full month. So our first month before we had products, we did $350,000 in pre-sale before the products arrived. And the first month with products, we did almost $600,000 in sales in the first month when we actually had products. So it was we hit our first $1 million in sales for the month in July of the first year. So we started May, June, July, August, we hit $1 million a month. So it was very fast.
What would you, I mean, it's obviously a loaded question, but what would you attribute that fast growth to? Because there are a lot of factors within Redcon1. The formulas were pretty well put together right out of the gate. You and Eric both had a lot of experience in that department. You had great marketing. You had very strong promotions. Like, but even if you have those things, it's not always a guaranteed success. Other brands have those things, but they don't do anywhere near as well. So, what would you attribute? What do you think was kind of the base factor as to why it's blowing up the way it has?
You named a lot of important factors. I think one thing for sure is that both Eric Hart, who's the president at the time, he was the vice president of Redcon1, and he was one of the very first employees. He was actually started with me the week before I left Blackstone. We had brought him in to be kind of like a similar role at Blackstone, and then everything happened, and I was able to take him with me to start Redcon. He had spent 12 years at BSN as one of the first employees, and then went after the transition. Glambia took over. He stayed on with Glambia, got his master's degree through them, spent some time in Ireland, and was moving up the ranks. He would have been one of the top guys at Glambia now if he had been willing to move to Chicago and then probably Ireland, which he wasn't. So he had tons of experience. And then obviously I'd owned a lot of brands. As you know, I've owned, almost 10 supplement brands. And I don't know where the numbers lie, but around that many. And all of them were successful to some degree or another. They're all my multi-million-dollar brands. But during that period of time, I learned a lot by making mistakes, and then also by making a lot of success. So I was really honest with the things that I knew that I did wrong and that I wish I would have changed. And I had all these things that I did really right. So I was able to scale the things we did right and get rid of, be honest with ourselves. And Eric had that same experience. He saw BSN grow from almost zero to $100 or $200 million brand ish, and sell for $180 million. And then he saw Glambia come on and mess all kinds of stuff up, but also did some things really right. He did some things that the corporate world taught him some things too, things he didn't want to do, things he didn't want to do. And we had that tremendous experience. The other thing we had was relationships. And in the sports supplement business, probably like a lot of businesses, relationships is a big deal. So I knew everybody and everybody knew me. And before I owned these supplement companies, as you know, I traveled the world with Dave Palumbo and RX Muscle. And I was started out from just a fan of bodybuilding and fitness industry and became the editor-in-chief of the biggest multimedia bodybuilding fitness website in the world at the time, RX Muscle. And so I did, without exaggeration, I probably went to 500 bodybuilding shows and expos, maybe more.
Damn.
And over all those years, everywhere from India and Asia and to New Zealand and Australia. I toured New Zealand and Australia. I spent a month in Australia and quite a while in New Zealand, touring and going all over. Not too many places to go in New Zealand, but I went to all of them. I went to Mo Al-Mustawi's pro show, saw Kai Green guest pose, a famous guest pose.
I remember that. Yeah.
I was in the front row for that. I've been everywhere with him. And along the way, I was very smart. And this wasn't intentional, but I was very smart about networking, meeting people, trying to be friendly and create relationships. I figured I didn't know what I would do with those relationships, but I always figured knowing all these people in this industry that I love, in this thing that I love, bodybuilding, would somehow be beneficial. And man, has that ever been the case? So like, when you talk about practically anybody that's a big deal or major in our industry, I know them personally, or at least I know someone that I can call to get their number and talk to them. And so whether that's a distributor in the Middle East, or whether that's, Jim Mannion, who I've become close friends with, or, who runs bodybuilding, or Rafael Santoja, I can call them all. I can reach out and talk to anybody that I want to talk to because of the relationships I built. So that's a big, big deal. And then the other big deal along with that is to have some resources, right? When I started Blackstone back in the day, I had very, very, very little money. So having the money to be able to spend, but then knowing how to spend it intelligently is a big deal. You mentioned the formulas. Yes, the product has to be great. Product has to be as good or better than anything on the market without breaking any rules. So as you know, that's an important part because you can easily break rules,
especially when you get blood.
Yeah. So the thing that I knew I didn't want to do was break rules. I knew we wanted to create a business that was sustainable, that wasn't going to lose products. So the important part is to make the products great, but the really important part is to build a brand. And so from the very, very, very beginning, before we even had a name, we sat down and said, okay, if we're going to build a brand like Apple, like Rolex, like IBM, IBM's, I'm thinking of iconic brands that people know who it is. I can show you the I in IBM and people are going to know, even though IBM's a whole different thing now. Amazon, I show you one letter of Amazon, A, you already know it's Amazon, right? I can show all these, there's many examples I could give you of iconic, long-lasting brands. Everybody knows the L&V from Louis Vuitton now. That's become a thing where everybody sees it. They know LV, Louis Vuitton. You don't even have to ask. So in sports supplements, that does not exist. There is some element of that, like at BSN, you saw the red jug and you would know. It was kind of flimsy, right? So there's nothing that had anything like that. So we decided, well, how do we make a brand like that? And it started with the name, also the logo, the look of the brand, who we stood for, creating a purpose-driven brand where it's not just cool supplements. There's more to it than that. Differentiating factor being the military twist, right? Yeah. Twisting towards the military. And then giving to military families and making a difference in people's lives. All of those things, plus a bunch more. And there's luck too, by the way. If you'd be lying to yourself if you think, oh, we're just so good. And by the way, we do have, and we was able to build an incredible, incredible team. It went from my old business where I felt like I was basically doing everything. I was reaching out to you personally on every story, trying to get I mean, I was very, very, very involved with everything from label review to I did all the accounting. I did payables and receivables. I mean, I ordered all the products. I mean, I did pretty much, I can't say everything because I didn't do the coding or the website design. I didn't do the art, but other than that, I pretty much felt like, I felt like I was doing everything. And now, as Redcon has grown, I don't want to say I'm doing nothing, but most of the good ideas are not mine. Most Eric's formulating everything. Most of the marketing stuff is done by Ryan, who you met, I think you met Ryan Monahan. He is, chief marketing officer. We have Jay, who's our chief legal officer. I have Kevin, who's our chief financial officer. I have all these very, very smart people who are great at their thing that they do. And I'm not the guy doing all the different things anymore. I'm now the coach. I'd say I'm the coach and maybe the driving force of the momentum of the brand, but I'm not the main guy. I'm not the main image used. We got Kai Green, the most famous bodybuilder in history. He is the main guy. And back in the day, we were very, very fortunate to have Dallas McCarver. He was one of my very first calls after I called Eric and got Eric on board. This is the day after I left Blackstone. So the day after I left, I felt sorry for myself. And then the next day I started. And so it was literally, that was one day I felt sorry.
You spent a lot of time.
That was it. I was like, I woke up the next morning and I was like, it's not so bad. Now I'm going to kick the shit out of that company and do way better. It won't matter. This is a great opportunity. I looked at it as an opportunity to restart and do things better. And so I called Eric first. Once Eric was on board, the next call was to Dallas McCarver, who I didn't really even know.
I was going to say, because Dallas was with BSN. So
he was still with
I'm assuming Eric must have known him from there.
Yes. Yeah, Eric knew him from there. Eric was the one who gave me his phone number.
Yeah.
And I called him on the phone. He had come to our after party at the Arnold Classic. Remember Boma? You went to that, right? I remember that. Boma, the church that turned into the nightclub, Jason Deere's after party.
I probably never went. Probably not. I'm not a big after
not a party person. Guy. You should have went. You missed a lot of good times. I loved going there because it was industry people were on the top floor. So there's 2 floors. There's a dance floor. There was craziness and midget wrestling one of the times, and it's like insanity. And it's in a church, which makes it even crazier. And the second floor, you can only get up if you're a VIP. That's actually how I met my past partner. I was the guy who was deciding. I was the arbiter of who gets the VIP pass.
Oh wow!
That was one of my first exciting jobs in the industry, where I was the guy because Jason was so busy putting on the show and putting on the after party. But he said, "Hey, everybody, you give out the passes." And first of all, I met a lot of girls this way. Don't tell Darielle, but I met a lot of girls this way. But I also met all kinds of people because they had to come to me, and I'd have to be like, "So, Mike Hearn, why do I give it to you? Who, and I would give the side, okay, you get one, you don't get one, you get one." So it was always the best party because the upstairs was just those people. You couldn't get upstairs. So that way you can have a conversation you could be staying there with Dorian Yates, Chris Cormier, and Dr. Scott Conley at the bar, having a conversation about, how metrics started, and everybody's talking and it's all very social. And that was so neat to be around all these industry people having conversation, no fans really allowed basically. And so that was a super cool thing. And being up there, and I had the opportunity to meet people. So one of our parties that we did were BSN, Blackstone Labs got a part that was exclusive. So we had a velvet rope, and Dallas came by and said, "Excuse me, sir," very polite. "Excuse me, sir, is there any way I could come in there with y'all and have a few drinks?" And I'm like, "All right, come on in." And I talked to him for the first time, and he was so polite, such a gentleman, that when I got home, I looked him up and looked for his videos and realized there was nothing online about this guy. The only videos were his coach, Matt Jensen, this little kid who was his coach, like a teenager who was coaching him, which was crazy. Matt Jensen was probably 20 years old coaching him at the time. And he was videoing him on his iPhone. And you would see this monster deadlifting 865 pounds for reps. And it's a shaky iPhone. And I'm like, this guy has it all. He's a good looking kid. Everybody's calling him Matt Damon. It was like a Matt Damon on steroids, everybody said. So there's this Matt Damon looking kid who was very charismatic, who was funny, who was very polite, too, a great sense of, respect for people, which I thought was very interesting. He was extremely hard worker, and nobody had seen him at all. Even though BSN had him for 2 years, there's no video of him. There's no pictures of him. No, he was not featured. He was forgotten about. He went pro when he was very young at North Americans, and then kind of people forgot about him, you know. And so I knew that he had that same Ronnie Coleman-esque thing where like he was able to move incredible weights. He was still extremely athletic and he had a likable personality. And so I called him on the phone and I told him, hey, I really want you to be part of my new project. And he was like, what's it called? And I'm like, I don't know yet. I was like, but it's going to be awesome. And I told him what we're going to do is we're going to have awesome content that's going to provide value to customers, potential customers and people and fans. And we're going to market to them with content, with value, and not even ask them to buy. And that initially, that was the plan that got people going. We're going to provide this content and value, and then hopefully they'll buy a t-shirt or product. And then the product or t-shirt is going to be awesome. They're going to love it. And they're going to tell other people. And that's how we're going to get it going. And I want to start it off by creating this buzz and hype around you, but I don't want to tell anybody why. What is the thing? It's going to be a secret like Fight Club. Nobody's allowed to talk about it. And that's why when I sent it to you, the images I was posting, people are like, what the hell is this? Dallas, Matt, all these guys are wearing Redcon shirts and Jordan hoodies and everything with Redcon. And I tell them all to tell people you can't say. Sorry, I can't tell you. So we're posting online. Everybody's asking, what is it? What is it? And everybody's saying, I can't say, I can't tell you. And so it created that initial hype. Dallas said, when I called him, he said, so what is it? I don't know the name, but the one thing I do know is you have to move to Boca right away. I can't sign you unless you can move and leave Tennessee and move to Boca. And he was like, all right, I'll do it. And I told him, when can you move? He was, I'll move next week. And I was like, all right. And that was was what really gave me the belief. I'm like, oh man, I must be onto something. I convinced this kid to move his whole life in like 30 minutes. So, and that was it, man. We were off to the races. So that there's a confluence of all these things that created this. It wasn't one thing. I can't say, hey, guys, you want to start a business out here, this is the thing you need to do. Because I don't know what one thing it could possibly be. It had to be all of them together at the right time, right moment, right point in the industry, and some good luck, you know?
I think the experience was probably the biggest underlining factor, it sounds like, for the whole thing. Just to get an athlete from the start, that's not something everyone does. To believe in a brand as much as you did, enough to get an athlete, and rely on the formulas, the content, have the different connections, and have the networking. I think the experience sounds like, because that's not something, I can tell you right now, that's not something new brands do. I haven't seen.
Right? If you like using your experience as a good as a example, if I was not me, if I hadn't had done all the things and had the experience, and I called Dallas, he would have been like, who the hell are you? And why are you calling me? And if you go, well, I want you to move across the country, and he'd be like, no, like, I'm not doing that. But he had faith in the fact that I was going to make it successful, you know, that whatever I was going to do was going to be big, and he wanted to be part of that next big thing. So yeah, for sure, the experience, you can't reproduce that, you know. And also the belief in myself that came with the experience, I never doubted that it was going to work, right? I didn't know it was going to be the biggest supplement company in history of the world. But now I definitely believe that, but I didn't believe that at the time. I could never, you've been extremely arrogant to think that's how it was going to be, but I did believe it was going to work. And I'm sure that came across in the way I was talking about it. I believed it, just like I usually do with a lot of stuff with me. I believe it. Not usually, I always believe that. Even when I'm wrong, I believe it, you know? And I think that experience gave me enough belief, and other people enough belief to risk, because I had 7 employees and one decently high paid athlete, $12,000 a month rent for my building. And I was burning, you know, at the time, even with the ads, selling no products, I was burning about $80,000 a month or so with no products. So nothing to sell, nothing to make money. So, you know, I signed a lease for a building for $12,000 a month for a 3 to 5 year lease. I could get out in 3, but then I had a penalty. So it takes big balls for sure. You have to really believe to do it, because you're right. As a new supplement company, to do those things with nothing to sell is very difficult to think.
Oh yeah. I actually had an interview not that long ago, and it was about sort of an entrepreneur kind of thing. And they asked me, what would you tell someone that wasn't sure if they should take the risk and start their new venture? And I said, I don't really have any advice. I kind of said what you said. I was like, if you have any doubt, whether it's 1 to 2%, probably shouldn't do it. I was like,
Yeah.
generally, if an entrepreneur has a good idea, you don't need to ask if he's confident. He's probably halfway down the street doing it. He's just,
Yeah.
that was my kind of answer. And that sounds very much like yourself. And I know you very well enough that if you had something you believed in, it could probably easily come across as it is going to be the best in the world. I could get, that's how I imagine you, even though you probably weren't thinking it, your
Yeah.
pitch to a lot of people, including myself, would have come across as exactly that.
Yeah.
And so it's not, I mean, it's surprising, but it's just, it's been impressive to watch the brand develop the way it has. Again, I haven't seen, you've had brands that I guess have come along that have gone as popular and as big as you, but not anywhere near to the extent of distribution, both international and domestic, which I think is incredibly important and not easy to do. International is probably one of the hardest things to do. And you did that very fast right out of the gate. I remember seeing it pop up in all these different countries, probably, like you said, due to networking. With the rise of the brand, because in the first 2 years or so, maybe 3, you guys were moving pretty quickly with new products, even though you had quite a bit at the start. You developed and added to the brand quite a bit quite quickly. Do you find, and I've noticed this with a lot of big brands, is that when you get larger, obviously it becomes incredibly hard to keep doing that. If you noticed kind of I guess, a difficulty trying to still pump out the amount of
Sure.
new releases and changes and formulas that you did earlier on?
Well, there's two factors. Number one is that once you make a full, line of products, now you have to really search. So if you have aminos, if you have EAs, if you have all these categories, now you need to start going into stuff that isn't like normal.
As
It's not
important, yeah.
if they're now you're searching for what's the next thing to add. That's one thing. The other thing is that last year was COVID year, right?
Yeah,
2020,
last year,
right?
Everyone gets a pass on last year.
Yeah, but if you think about all the things we came out with last year, we came with a lot of things.
You did.
Considering that it was COVID. I mean, we came out with the protein RTD, which is a huge undertaking. Came out with a ton of new flavors of Total War, ton of new flavors of Total War RTD. Came out with there's a long list of products that we came out with, a bunch of new flavors of the bar, a bunch of new flavors of Emery Light. I'm sure I'm forgetting all kinds of stuff, but we came out with a lot of things.
Yeah,
not as much as 19, but in 2021 we'll have a bunch of new stuff again. We have the Redcon1 bar, which is going to be exciting. We have a whole new slew of. We have Mushroom Cloud, which you don't know about yet. We have a few capsule products that I'm excited about. One of them particularly, it's an anabolic muscle building natural product that's going to be really cool. You can imagine Mushroom Cloud as an adaptogen product based on all kinds of mushroom stuff.
Yeah, I imagine it's. Last year kind of stemmed a lot of categories.
Yeah.
So
it's like, are you really going to come out with an adaptogen product when you're in the middle of a worldwide pandemic? Probably not priority, right? So the other thing we've had, this has been probably the biggest reason not to be able to come out with a lot of new products, is because we are not able right now to keep up with the demand on our current products.
Oh, okay.
So our manufacturing partners are having a hard time. We've added some. Are having a really hard time keeping up with our orders as is. So for example, if you have Total War, whatever flavor, sour gummy, and I can't keep that in, and it's selling, 50, 60,000 units a month.
Yeah.
Should I now tell that manufacturing partner having a hard time keeping up with the demand of that? Hey, by the way, here's our new whatever product. Start making that too. So now when we put in orders with like our main manufacturing partner, I'm expecting to receive that product in December. So it's now the forecasting has become really, really difficult. We don't want, now that we're in the Walmarts of the world, we have a bunch of other ones like that coming on, and Walmart is expanding significantly for us come October for the new reset, that you can't be late for these people. We're penalized from GNC and Vitamin Shop, mostly GNC actually, for being late. So if Vitamin Shop's easy, so you can just change in the system, you can decline a purchase order, and then it just moves over to the next week. So you just say, oh, we don't have it now, and they move it. But for like GNC, they're more difficult, and they charge you money every time you're late, right? And the fees add up. So, and not just that, I'm telling GNC, or not really me, Eric is telling, or whoever's telling GNC, yeah, we can go with this date, and then we don't hit it, that it keeps moving things back, and it hurts the ability to scale. So that is it's a weird, big, I mean, it's a good problem that we have so much demand, but
it's the best problem
to have. Yes, it is. I can't complain about it too much, because obviously having no demand is way, way worse. But it does suck when people have money and they're like, hey, I want to give you this money, and you have to go, nah, got to pass on the money, you know? And it happens to us every day. It happens every day. So, you know, we're about, I would say 30% or so of our potential revenue is gone because we don't have the inventory to supply the demand. So it definitely hurts the opportunity to add more new SKUs. So what we're doing is trying to expand to new manufacturers, bigger new manufacturers, not to cut off the business we're doing with other manufacturers, but if they can't keep up, they can't keep up. We have to prepare for the future. You know, there's problems that go along with reaching the size we are now that I never anticipated before, where a manufacturer can't physically, with the lines that they have, produce enough product, even if they run 24 hours a day. And a lot of these manufacturers are having, in America anyway, I don't know how it's like in New Zealand or anywhere else, but they're having a hard time keeping people employed, because they rather get a little less money to sit on their butt at their house, because the government is going to give them a check to not work. And so that's not as prevalent here in South Florida, but other parts of the country where manufacturers are, people rather not work because they're getting a check not to work. And that's a whole other problem in and of itself. Now these laborers who are handling machines are getting paid $15 an hour. They're like, I'm not doing that. I'd rather sit at home and get whatever, $12 an hour. I'd rather play video games all day or whatever, you know, eat Cheetos and hang out with my friend or whatever. I don't know. So to me, that sounds like a fate worse than death. But to a lot of people, that sounds
like a horrible time to me. But yeah,
I would hate it. I mean, when we had employees during the worst part of COVID, we were kind of pressured to allow some of the employees who are really nervous to go home and work from home. And if Shane, you haven't been to the new office, but our company culture is very loose here. If people want to, you know, take a break and go get on a phone call or walk around or go eat a sandwich or whatever, there's no rules basically here. You know, just get your job done. Like we have coders that come in at 11 a.m. that they like to sleep late, whatever. Just get your jobs done. You know, a lot of coders, our coder guys, dev team will come in at 11:30 and leave at 9 at night. I don't care.
It sounds like me.
Yeah, if the job's done, whatever. I don't, you know, if your job's not done, we'll have a problem. But I don't really care in terms of that. So, but that being said, when the people said I can't work here anymore, I'm too scared, right? We put on their computer this tracking thing, and I told them, hey, we're basically going to be Big Brother now. You wanting to go home because we have so much space here that we can give everybody a huge wide berth. You know, they can have their own office, closed door, wear a mask, hazmat suit, anything they want to wear. They can. The one rule with all that's kind of changed. We don't have as much now. When it was all everybody scared, I was like, nobody can make fun of anybody because some people wouldn't like me. I never wore a mask ever. The place was always open, and we're working here because we're essential. So I didn't mind, and I was not okay with it. Did not allow anybody to make fun of somebody being scared. If they're scared, we'll do whatever we can to accommodate them. But it got to a point where I felt like I was being insensitive. People were this scared. And I'm like, okay, go home, but we're going to put this on your system and on the computer, and we're going to watch everything you're doing. Like, it sucks. But now you are going to go to YouTube. I'm going to know. I'm going to watch where your mouse is. I'm going to see how often you're working, how much you're not working. And you have to work 8 hours a day. If you're going home 8 hours a day, you need to work. Well, this was terrible, right? Right?
Yeah.
Anytime they were not moving for over 15 minutes, it would alert. It would send an alert to the system. You know, Joe Blow is not working now. And would pop up and say, you're not working, you know? And it was terrible. It was terrible.
Yeah.
Within a week, almost every single one of them came back and figured out a way, because it's not, I don't know how, like, I don't know if people thought they would go home and play video games and hang out. But it's not fun to sit at home. And
it's not.
It's not like, No, it's not fun. And I think I don't really get why this is happening so much in the manufacturing business. I know manufacturing, if they're just, putting the scooper in the bottle all day, every day, maybe that's, not fun at all.
I've done that stuff before when I was younger. That was one of my jobs.
Yeah. Did you put the scoop in?
I was a factory line worker, and it wasn't like in the supplement game. I'm talking like when I was 16, but we basically shrink wrapped groups of foil containers. So you get a big box of say 10,000, and you'd have to sort them into 500, put them in a shrink wrap, put them through a heat machine, and then pack them at the other end. So we had about 3 people, and you would each have a job. And I did that, and we would sometimes do that for 4 hours a day. I never really got, compared to what I'm doing now, yes, it sucked, but it was,
Yeah.
I mean, you did what you did to make money, I guess. I never really thought I thought there was an alternative.
Yeah, no, I when I was a kid, my mom worked at a printing shop, and I collated during summer. Or you'd have to like take one page and put it on top of the other, and then put on top of the other, and you go down the line putting the pages on top. And it definitely wasn't a fun job, but it wasn't. I didn't think of it as terrible. And then I pack, for Black Friday we packed the boxes. So, well, everybody here, about that, Shane.
I love that. That was another job I did.
Pack the boxes.
I packed orders for certain packaging companies and food companies, and we'd pack pallets and stuff like that. But I did that too. I actually really liked that. I don't know why.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's something gratifying about that, because I don't do it. Obviously, I'm not doing it all day every day, but we do a lot. I mean, when that week, you have to do 12, as me and Eric, we do, like, Eric usually does the night shift, and it can be 12 hours of nonstop packing 6 or 7 days in a row. Yeah. And he does it overnight most times. And then we still work. So, it's pretty rigorous, but I have to tell you, there's something fulfilling about doing it.
You get like an order, and you have to like pick the items and put them in a box, and you're like, done. And next, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Weird. Yeah, it's weird. It is weird when you see it. You see all the ones you've done, and you're like, all right, I did all this. It's interesting. Where there is something to that. I don't know what, but there is something to that.
So it basically sounds like kind of just with the growth and the success. Obviously, the growth more than anything, that seems to be the toughest part, I guess, to keep up with. Because
everything else pretty fun. There's stressful moments a lot. This is definitely a very stressful job. And running all these personalities now, there's a lot of people under us. There's certainly, because things are going so well, it's really tough to complain about too much. Things are really very, I feel very fortunate. And we do have a lot of fun. And it seems like everything that we're doing right now, it seems like it's working no matter what, which is, obviously it doesn't happen. Life is not like that. There are going to be ups and downs, right? So there's going to be bad times for sure for Redcon, for me. There's also going to be a lot of good times. And so hopefully we pass through the bad times as fast as possible and enjoy times like right now, where everything seems to be clicking. And we're in a real period of hyper growth where, from 20 in 20, we grew 40% during COVID over the previous year, which is crazy, which is great. This year we will grow more percentage wise from 20 to 21 than we ever have, other than obviously from 0 to whatever we were, 0 to 100% or whatever million percent, infinite percent. So we're going to grow more this year than we ever have percentage wise. We're hundreds of percent up from last year. So it's a weird, crazy thing that's happening. I don't know if that's because I think about this occasionally. Is it because other companies are losing market share? Is it because the Glambias of the world are losing market share that we're gaining it? Or is it because we would have done this last year during COVID, but because of COVID, it held everything off? I'm not sure.
Someone else mentioned that to me. They said that kind of since like the last few months, it's just shit's exploded. Like people just, and then they didn't attribute it, because I wouldn't attribute it to that, because that's happened. That's happened over the past few years. That's not just this year. I think that trend you're talking about, where you get more new companies coming in and the bigger companies don't have as much kind of share. that's happened a lot. They were saying that they believe it's the world kind of waking up. Like fitness is already a bit of a trend,
Yeah.
but nothing gets you more interested in health than, I guess, the alternatives or the side effects or the downside. So they were saying a couple of people I spoke to, both retailers and brands, feel that it's attributed to just that big interest in health, to like, because it was plastered all over the internet. Like if you
Yeah.
have no underlying conditions or
Yeah. Oh
whatever.
yeah. Everywhere.
So I think that, and that's a powerful message. And that wasn't even just like an opinion. That was
Yeah.
kind of stated as fact. So
I could see that fear of death, because people go, well, look, you don't want to die. Well, every single thing on the internet and every doctor has said, even whether you're left leaning or right leaning, has said, hey, if you are overweight, obese, or have all these underlying conditions that are mostly related to being unhealthy, you have a much, much better chance of dying. Like that's the one thing that everybody agreed on. We had a lot of controversy over all kinds of stuff, but that was the one thing where everybody was like, yeah, if you were obese, you have a much better chance of dying, or diabetes, or all these other underlying conditions. So like you actually have control over that stuff, to a larger degree. You have a control over how much you weigh and which, what you definitely have control over what you put in your mouth. That's for sure.
yes.
So I think I believe that for sure. I think that it makes sense that people would be much more concerned now. I mean, my mom, my sister, a lot of people that I know have taken it much more seriously post-COVID, or even really during COVID, when people start really, I don't know about in New Zealand, but here in my neighborhood, we started seeing people outside riding bikes, walking constantly, running. It's like out of nowhere. It was like, COVID happened, all of a sudden everybody's outside running.
Yeah, I think the other thing I remember hearing years ago, there was like I don't know how accurate it was or whether it was backed up, but they said something like 55-60% of the world takes some sort of supplement, which sounds like a lot, but then obviously that was roping in people who were just doing like the vitamin C gummies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I would have thought that, and I think they were saying of that 60% again, we're doing it sort of like sports related supplements like protein and stuff, which isn't, no, that's not a lot when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, in the percentage of the world. But I was like, that just leaves you a giant percentage to increase. And even if you just tap into an extra 1% or 2%, that's a shitload of people. And COVID touched the world. So I think that definitely had that expansion.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it, where if just 1% of the population is taking fitness more seriously, that would make a huge dent on the fitness supplement industry.
And I doubt that it was 1%. Like I said, nothing makes you more interested than when you're at home doing nothing.
Yeah.
Another question I had was, you were saying with the growth and just the giant rise in Redcon, have you guys thought about expanding? And I've seen this with a few other brands, is expanding to your own manufacturing or expanding into the sort of the automated packaging facilities that I've seen. I know Olymp out in Poland. If you ever get to see, if you're in that part of the world, their direct to consumer fulfillments is the most impressive I've seen. Like even when you look at some of the Amazon videos, theirs is insane. I think they're saying something like 5 to 10 people work it, and they have robots that pick the thing out of the racks, and then they send the little container along the conveyor belt, and then they have a robot hand that plucks one unit out, puts it in a box, and then packages up, tapes it. The only time people touch it is when they take it off the conveyor belt to put it onto another conveyor belt that then takes it out to shipping.
Wow.
And it's an incredible system, and they have a QR code, so when specific to each unit of the supplement, so they can tell you which robot touched it, which human touched it, in which box, and which route it went. And so I mean, is that something you think you would look at? Because again, it's obviously you're in that position where that's potentially a factor, and that is something a lot of brands outside of sports supplements have done.
Yeah, so we've thought about it. Eric Hart is really mechanically inclined. So there's part of him that has a real interest in the business of manufacturing because he likes the machines and stuff. I'm not mechanically inclined. So I can't fix anything. Eric can rebuild a car motor. I wouldn't know the first thing. I don't even change my own oil. So, it's definitely, but he has always been interested in it. I know obviously you're able to claw back a lot of margin. So we've kind of looked into it here and there and talked about it, and even talked about buying a manufacturing facility that wasn't doing as well. But the truth is, it is a whole new business that me and him don't know anything about. Yeah, it's a whole new thing.
Big step to take.
Yeah, so we've looked into, we thought about it, but when the company's doing this well and it's growing like up into the right, while it does sound appealing in a lot of different ways, I would love to be able to control our own ability to make product and get product. I mean, that sounds great. Clawing back the 30, 40 points is crazy, would be great. And then obviously for a sale one day in the future, the being vertically integrated would increase your multiple a lot, but I don't know anything about it. So I would hate to get into something that I know I don't know anything about. The only way that we would do it at this point is if some manufacturer was doing poorly or lost big customers, and we believed wholeheartedly in the ability of that person who's running it to continue running it at the same rate and had the same motivation to run it, even if we were to buy it or take it over or whatever. So we haven't run into that possibility, but if there was somebody out there, if somebody's watching right now and they have this awesome manufacturing facility that's GMP compliant, that's NSF, that has kosher and halal and can do all this stuff, and they just don't have any business, and they want somebody to bring a lot of business, and in exchange for a lot of business and maybe some money, they would change ownership in the manufacturing, we would be interested, but it's not something we're actively pursuing. And in terms of like the packaging and robotics, we're pretty damn far away from that now. We got 80 people running around packing boxes downstairs. There's certainly systems in place, but there's no robotics or no automation. And that's another thing I don't know anything about, but I'm very fascinated in that possibility. It definitely would be neat to see. The only downside for us is that we are like kind of like a family here at Redcon.
Yeah.
So I know all these guys. I don't know, maybe I don't know their names of everybody, which is also, that's a weird thing to go into your business and you don't know the names of people is really weird. But I've gotten used to it now. So if I go down there, I know them all, although I only know the names of a handful. But I do know them. I see them at the gym. We have the Redcon gym where if you're an employee here, you get a free membership. So I see them more at the gym than I do even here. So it'd be tough to say like, hey guys, robots replacing you, you're all fired. It would be real hard for me to do that. Even if it was a smart business move, I would say I am certainly a softie. It would be very difficult for me to go down there or have somebody else go down there and fire everybody because the robots came, it'd be tough. We're kind of learning. We're learning as we go. I mean, that's one of the tough things is that there's no examples that I can look at and say like, hey, this is how they did it. Maybe we can try to replicate some of their successes. There's no real example anymore for me to look at in sports supplements anyway. In sports supplements, certainly there's a lot of people that are very smart with logistics and shipping and everything. We don't have anybody. We just recently got asked who's our competition, and I don't know who our competition is.
I
don't know.
I mean,
we have people that are bigger than us, but I don't know who's
I had this discussion with Ghost, and he said to me, I said, you're one of the large companies. And he's like, no, I don't think that. And I said, no, you have to understand. And he thought this was a good insight. And I said to this Dan from Ghost, and I said, you have to understand back in 2010, you had maybe 5 big companies.
Yeah.
You had like similar mid-sized companies, and you had similar small-sized companies. I said, now you have a big increase in small companies. So the average size that you needed to be considered large is not as big as it was. So I would say that Redcon1 is in the same realm as Optimum and BSN, pure, not necessarily because of numbers, but because you are, when you look at influence, reach, size, like you are maybe not producing on the level of them, but you're in that same realm compared to how many actual brands are on the market. And I would put Redcon up there with Optimum, BSN, Gaspari, Muscle Tech, Cellucor, even though they might seem a little bit far. I don't know. You're a lot closer to them than you are the other guys. So it's
no, you're right. Yeah, of those people, in terms of revenue, I think only Optimum that you mentioned and Cellucor are larger in terms of revenue at this point. I mean, Muscle Tech also probably, I don't know. Muscle Tech is this weird thing where, we don't see it here at all. So it's almost out of sight, out of mind.
I've heard they do tremendously well in China and internationally. Like
China, you can make a whole business out of that. So, I mean, we have almost nothing. We're in Macau. We have a distributor in Macau. We have a little bit in China, but it's extremely minimal. China and Russia are two places that have a lot of people, and we have almost no exposure. India, we're doing, some business, a few $1 million. I mean, we're doing $5 million a year in India, but there's all those people and all this interest in India. There's 300 million supplement consumers, I was told, in that age group that have the means to pay. Because obviously there's a billion people, right? But of that billion, how many are not going to work out or not interested in fitness or don't have the money? Because there's a lot of people that don't have any money at all. But if there's 300 million consumers of fitness and fitness products, then we have only touched the tiny bit of the surface in India, and in China even less. China is you could be a $1 billion brand in China if you really had the right inroads.
You could be a $1 billion brand in China and not be known in America. It's incredible.
I know.
We were actually meant to go. We had a flight booked for June last year, and for obvious reasons it was canceled. But
don't eat any bats and stuff like that. Avoid
that was my kind of goal, was to go there and learn. So I have, because my wife's Malaysian Chinese, and she knows a good amount.
She can speak Chinese, didn't she tell me that?
She can't speak it that well. Like, I'm learning quite a bit. I know a couple hundred words, but it's incredibly hard to say it. Like, I just have so much difficulty trying to sit there and be like, okay, how do I say it? I can understand it pretty well when you know keywords. But
here in school, all the private schools here in Boca, Mandarin is now taking the place of French. So it's kind of Spanish and Mandarin are the two languages.
Well, I mean, Mandarin it's got to be up there with one of the most spoken languages of the world. But our plan was to go there, kind of learn, because I was just always curious about like supplement retailers. How does that work? Are there any local brands? If there are, how are they doing? Kind of thing. But it's crazy that you are the size you are, and you haven't really scraped the surface of China or India, which their populations make up a third of the world.
Crazy, right? I mean, and also in all the bigger accounts, we're not in Costco, we're not in Sam's Club, we're not in Walgreens, we're not in CVS, we're not in most grocery store chains, Kroger, Albertsons, Publix. We're on some of their websites, but not on the shelves in those stores. To give you an idea, I had a people, I don't know if this is like too inside baseball or it might give me, I just won't use the name. So we get spin reports. You familiar with spins? It's like IRI data of what's being sold.
Yeah.
So I can look at Albertsons, and I don't want to name the name brand because I don't want to give away. I don't know if this is private information that I'm not supposed to say, but there's a bar brand. It's a mainstream bar brand that did $200 million in sales at Albertsons.
Holy shit!
Not a sports supplement bar. It's a bar that everybody would have heard of, but it's not like a Quest bar or whatever. So just in Albertsons, in their locations, $200 million in sales. So I saw that, and I'm like, how the hell are we not in Albertsons, right? I was like, gotta get in Albertsons. So it's like that kind of thing where it's like, there's so much more potential out there. There's a lot. If you can get into these chains.
When you get mainstream, it's
crazy.
I still say to this day, it's crazy. I dislike how in the US you have your sports supplement aisle. I said the day that you can get protein bars in the candy aisle and protein powders shakes on the same aisle as soft drink, I was like, that's when you're gonna see this industry just blow up, because you have to venture to this aisle for it to happen. It's not forced in front of them yet. When that happens, you get it in a couple of Scandinavian countries, but when that happens, it's like it'll be way bigger.
Well, we see it right now with the energy drink market. So energy drinks, that's what happened. So energy drinks were, Red Bull was big, but it was nowhere near it wasn't anywhere approaching Coca-Cola or Pepsi or anything like that. It wasn't approaching a Mountain Dew or anything like that. But then you start to see the proliferation of all these other brands. And now when you go down the soft drink aisle, you see Bang, you see, Monster and Reign and all these, and they're being sold at a very premium price.
Oh yeah.
Next to, all it is caffeine and suds, right? There's nothing really in these things. Of course, super creatine, but there's not a lot in these things. So the cost for the can Not much. There's not much cost in these things, but they're selling for a premium price, and they're everywhere. I mean, I have to salute to Alani New. I always say that wrong. Alani New. They're everywhere. They got on Target, on the shelves of Target with their energy drink. Now they're doing a hard seltzer with alcohol. Very impressed with that. Very interesting. I've never seen. Who would have ever imagined a girls supplement line would make a girls carbonated beverage that would then one day make a alcoholic carbonated beverage. It's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah.
But that carbonated energy drink is now, that's where we want to be. You want to see protein there, protein bars in that same kind of area, and we will literally see the industry take off. I believe it.
So are we going to see you in the energy drink aisle?
It's pretty tempting. Everybody asks that.
You've got not that like Ghost is a similar area, but you got to be kind of reassured after how well they did with theirs, and now they're getting in many places. And obviously there are other brands doing it. Rays from Rip Sports, also Florida, they had to have. I mean, it's one of those things where I feel like you would have to be more confident that when you launch your brand, that if Redcon1 came out with an energy drink, it would do well.
Yeah, I talked to Chris Wagner at Rays because I like him. He's a really good guy, and I said, I don't know how this came about. I think one of my sales guys told him that maybe we do a Rays Redcon1 flavor drink. And I thought because that doesn't make any sense. So I thought that what he was saying was that they would manufacture a carbonated beverage for us on their lines.
Yeah, because they bought all the equipment.
Yeah. So I reached out to him and he's like, hell no. He's like, then I won't have any time to make Rays anymore. He's like, you're going to take all my line time. And I was like, I figured. I was like, I didn't understand. He's like, I thought you wanted me to put your logo on our stuff. I'm like, that really doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I mean, it's I gotta tell you, Shane, it's tempting because I do know it would do well. I'm not like hesitant that it would work. I just want to make sure we don't overload the amount that we can do at once. So we just came out with the protein RTD, the MRE RTD, and it has taken off to such a degree that it's been very difficult to keep up with the demand. We've basically in literally a few months, we've taken over a large majority of the coolers at gyms. People were replacing other brands drinks, and it's being picked up by a lot of people at every gym, basically from every Gold's now 24-hour fitness, every 24-hour fitness, basically every major chain is going to be having it. It's killing it at Vitamin Job, killing it at GNC. We'll soon be in larger retailers with it. It's killing it in the military. The Total War ready to drink is the #1 pre-workout ready to drink in the country, maybe in the world. So does it make sense to quickly add a carbonated one when we're not even maximized? The other ones, I don't know. It's very tempting though. My salespeople really, really want me to do it. I won't say no.
I strung it. I said this to a lot of brands that thought about it, and I said it's exactly what you said. If you can get Redcon1 in the soda aisle and any major retailer, that may then push them down the health aisle. That may then bring them to your website. And that percentage that go down that soda aisle is probably a lot more, a bigger audience than you already have.
Oh yeah,
that's kind of like what I was saying. You put a protein bar in the candy bar aisle, the exposure is huge. That is what you'd get with energy drink if it does well.
No, I agree. One of the big things that was exciting about Walmart is being in 4,000 plus locations. Yeah. And all of the people that walk by it, it was very exciting. Obviously, Walmart was fantastic for us because we didn't have to change the price. It's at the normal price. We didn't have to change the formula. We didn't have to change the size. I don't know if enough people in our industry, in the actual sports supplement industry, realize how big a deal that is for them. I'm not even talking about for me, but for them, that is a huge deal.
We're the first. Water it down is
well, we're $39.99 on the shelf at Walmart, and that is the first. Just to give you some reference, we're now #1 in pre-workout at Walmart. In performance nutrition, we're the #1 product. And the next product underneath us is $24.99. And the next one under that is $19.99.
I know.
So we're double the price of almost every other one in the entire category. So that shows that Walmart consumers are willing to spend money on products that they believe in or that they think are quality. And that means basically every other potential person that probably is watching now or is interested and involved as a business owner or employee of a sports supplement, now you have a chance. Like there's a chance. We have proven we open the doors to everybody else potentially getting in there, which I think is like a huge deal.
You've opened the door, but you've also kind of been like, yeah, but we're gonna rule that space.
Well, we're gonna take a lot more of those shelf spaces come October for sure. But yeah, but I mean, but it does open the door because like somebody like you mentioned Ghost, and I love those guys. Dan is a great guy. Obviously, I've known Ryan for a million years. They're both great, and like they didn't have a shot in hell. They didn't have a chance in hell to get in there. But now they have a pretty damn good shot. I would say they have a really good shot to get in now because there's proof of concept that a brand that they go up against in other places and do well, and they're beating us in GNC, so they can say, hey, this brand that's killing it, the Total War is killing it. Well, in GNC, we're beating them. Here's the numbers. And they can show that. And that may get the buyer to, because before they'd go, who the hell are you? This doesn't appeal to our demographic. We never even heard of you before, but now they're going to go, oh, well, you beating our number one someplace, you got a shot. So
well,
I'm not telling them to go out and do it. Leave Dial alone. Dan, stay far away, man. Bad idea. Take your time. Dan likes to take his time with stuff and plan things out and not jump the gun. So should probably wait a little while, but then go ahead and
5-10 years. Just
Yeah. He needs to roll out the products in Vitamin Shop first. Tell him to do that one next.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
Let him know.
I appreciate you taking the time. It was awesome having you on and having a chat. And it sounds like we're still in for a lot more excitement from Redcon1 in years to come.
Of course, man. Of course. Yes, it's been a lot of fun, and there's definitely a lot more years left. I don't know if before we go, did you want me to talk about the investment thing, or you want to? Is that something?
Oh yeah, shit! I almost forgot.
I thought that was the whole point of the interview. I didn't.
When you mentioned when I was talking about the manufacturing, that was kind of where I was leading with the question. I was going to say because I was like, with that investment thing, like, again, if you want to go over it, because you obviously have the resources now. Going to be a lot more than they were. That was kind of where I was leading with the manufacturing thing and the production line. I was like, surely it had to have crossed your mind even more with the amount you've got now backing you.
Yeah, well, that is so when Trivest Partners purchased 24% of Redcon1. It's a minority investment. They don't have any controls or any ownership in terms of the ability to really do anything, which is, they're able to give me advice basically, and I can't do. In the deal, I can't do things that I wouldn't do to another business partner. In other words, I can't like hire Shane on here for $1 million a year and reduce the profit. Tell Shane, hey, hook me up with a little bit. I can't invest the business money in cryptocurrency, or I can't. I have to anything major like that, like giving some humongous raise or hiring a new position that's $1 million. I have to go to them and they have to say like, okay, cool. I just have to ask them, like, let them know I'm doing it, and they have the ability to veto it if it doesn't make sense. Which we're all on the same team now.
You just can't do anything stupid.
Yeah, I can't do anything stupid. I can't, like, for example, if I wanted to, let's say I want to buy the Redcon1 jet, I have to say to them, hey, I want to buy the Redcon1 jet. Cool. And they could say, no, I don't think that makes sense. Right. But it's just stuff like that. Right. Don't do anything you wouldn't want. Yeah. I just think of it as like, if they ran it and I invested, would I want them to do it or not? So I think it's a more of a respect thing, but basically that's the extent of what they can control and what they can do. The things that they are able to do is, if there was a chance to buy a manufacturing facility, they would be able to support us doing that if it made sense. But the big things is that, number one, I have all of my money, everything I have basically has been invested into Redcon. So when you go and look at all of our inventory, at $20 million in inventory, that's basically all my money. So they were able to allow me to take some of that money that's been put into the business and save it up for my family. So now I have a nest egg so that, everybody, my guys, my 3 boys are safe, right? My wife's safe, everybody's good. And then the bigger thing, not the biggest thing, the bigger thing is they were able to put money in the business so that we don't run out of inventory all the time, so that we're able to stock up and not be so we've been running, since it's all my money, I've been running very, very, very lean. So when Eric and I and Taylor and the rest of the guys forecast, we only want to keep 8 weeks to 12 weeks of inventory in stock. And when you're growing really fast, all of a sudden 8 to 12 weeks, maybe 4 weeks all of a sudden. And then you're like, oh shit, and you have to order. And before your order comes in, you've been out of stock for another 8 weeks or whatever. And if it's all my money and I have to pay the bills, I'm paying my bills on time, it can be stressful, because if you over order, now you may have a hard time turning the products fast enough into cash. And so over and over again, I've had to lend the business millions of dollars, and I pay myself back. It's stressful to be like, wow, the business is doing so good, yet I'm not able to make any money because I'm having to put money back into the business. And so they were able to kind of put fuel to burn in the fire here to get things really going. So now I don't have to be so cautious about when I'm ordering Emery Light. I don't have to say, well, let's just order 30,000 because I don't want to pay that bill in 8 weeks. I rather like, let's just do that and don't go to 60. So now we can say 60, right? Because there's no real limitation, or at least not in the foreseeable future, of what we can, how fast we can grow. And then probably the most important thing is that these guys are very, very smart. All of them. I mean, it's crazy. I don't know, Shane, you probably know, but I didn't finish high school. I got a GED, which is,
I didn't do too well in high school either.
No, a lot of us aren't great students. I didn't go to college. I'm totally self-taught. Not that I'm not a huge believer in education for somebody like me, but I do respect it. So a lot of these guys have Harvard MBAs, Wharton MBAs, Yale. These guys are real deal finance guys that have seen and been a part of hundreds and hundreds of transactions. So they can look at my business in a different way and give me cool advice that I just wouldn't have thought of. It's already happened a bunch of times. They're not able to tell me, you got to do it. They can't say, hey, Shane, do this. But they can say, hey, Shane, this is what we've seen 50 times and it's worked 50 out of 50 times. Have you ever considered it? And so that's the stuff that's like, I'm not around anybody on a day-to-day basis that has that kind of experience. I don't have a mentor or somebody I look up to or talk to about any of this. I'm kind of on an island by myself with all this team that I have, a great team, but
I mean, as you're saying, you have no leaders to kind of follow you.
No, your own path. I don't have anybody to really ask. So now I can, while they're not going to be able to advise us on what's the next formula of the next big product or whatever, they don't know. They'll tell you they don't know shit about supplements. We're the first sports supplement company they've ever, I think the second one, but only the first real one. They've had other CPG companies, but nothing like Redcon. So they can't really advise on the day-to-day operations anyway. But the larger stuff, like the bigger experience and the relationships that they have that I don't have, they can call up the president of all these banks. They can call up the CEO of Costco. Like, I don't know these guys. How would I get in touch with them? But they know them all because they've done business with other businesses before. So there's a long list of things that they're going to be able to help with that I wouldn't even know how to begin with doing on my own. It would be just like everything else, it'd be a learning curve. I'd probably screw up a million times before I finally got it right, and they've helped me avoid, even though it's only been a few weeks now, they've helped me avoid making some mistakes already. And I can only imagine going forward that'll continue on a larger level.
It sounds like, just that, like you said, more fuel. It kind of reminds me of how Grenade, it's a very similar situation with I can't remember their exact percentage or whatever it was, and they were saying much the same thing. They now pretty much have just more fuel on the fire, no real kind of limit to worry about. And by the sound of things, when you were basically describing the manufacturing earlier, it kind of sounds like this is just the answer to go to, the ideal solution. And damn, wow. I mean, I knew you were putting back in the brand. I remember you telling me that way back. And obviously, I guess if you were on the consistent growth that you were, it's not surprising that that's been the case the whole time. So I guess that's got to be incredibly relieving, I guess, for you. And
yes. And don't get me wrong, Shane, I've certainly made money in Redcon. I haven't been like, it's not like I've been working without a salary.
It's one of those things where like, this had to have felt like, I guess, like this is kind of what, like, this is what my reward was meant to be. This is kind of what my hard work was. I understand you probably had things along the way, but it probably wasn't on the level of the amount of work you put in, I think. Whereas this sounds like it was.
You're definitely right. You're definitely right. And then and when people ask, when it all went down and the deal closed, did me and Darielle, my wife, celebrate? Did we go like rent a yacht and go to the islands, and we like go crazy party in Miami or whatever? We didn't do anything. I trained hamstrings and calves, and she took the kids to the baseball game.
You didn't even do chest? It wasn't even like
do anything. No, I'm trying to do a double split. I did quads that morning. Once the deal closed, I had to finish hamstring and calves.
Okay.
But no, I should have done chest. You're right.
Yeah, that's the go-to.
But what it did feel like both me and her was as a sort of relief, kind of like a relief. And also, like, if you were to ask her, she would say, it all kind of makes sense now. Like, there's been a lot of stress, and to put, when a business is doing well, I think it's very foreign to people. It was definitely foreign to me to have to keep putting money in the business. And then, I pay myself back, but it's stressful to be like, also taxes is something that's weird that people don't think of, is that if your business is doing very well, you may not have all the money that your P&L says you made. So my K1 may say $5 million, but if I've only taken out $2 million because I've had to buy more inventory, I've had to, add more in general, I'm not able to actually take it out because I need that money to grow. Well, my K1 still says 5 million and I still owe 40% of that to the government. But if I only took 2 million out, where do I get the other money to pay my taxes? Right. Yeah. So it's a weird, that's one of those weird things that people don't think of. And I definitely never thought of that. So when I tell people that who are in big business, they go, yeah, that's the thing that happens. But I was blown away. Remember the first year that Blackstone did really well. And we weren't able to take as much as I thought we should have. And I wasn't being conscious of like saving money and being thrifty to pay taxes. Remember getting that first really big tax bill, and I'm way used to it now, but that first tax bill, I'd be like, that doesn't seem fair. Like, wait, I only took this much. How could I be paying that much? Yeah. And I remember I never did it, but I wanted to do a video and like be totally transparent and show people, because I think people, including my employees at the time back then, seemed to not have any understanding of the fact that like what's really going on. Like, if you make 800 grand on paper, but if you only pulled out 500 and you spent 200 on shit you probably shouldn't have, all of a sudden you have no money. You're totally broke. You know what I mean? It's something that I certainly wouldn't expect anybody to feel sorry for me for it, but it is something that is people I don't think are aware of, that you could pay taxes on money you never actually realized, that you never actually saw. It's a weird thing. So
I can. Again, it's I've not been in that situation, but I know from paying taxes and running my own business what you mean by that. And
you pay a lot of taxes in New Zealand, right? Taxes is ridiculous there.
Ours is I think it's might be better than yours. I think
maybe is it Australia that's bad?
Maybe. I know ours, like you have business tax is 28, then you have personal tax, which depending on how much you earn, it goes up per tier. So if you earn over like 72, that's 33%, but that's the highest it gets. If it's
28 plus 33?
No. So you either pay business or personal.
Oh,
you don't pay both. So personal was 33 if you earn over 72, but anything under that, it goes down to like 30, and then it goes down to 17.5%, and then it's 10% if you earn less than 10,000 or something. So it's pretty good. I know I've heard people in the US.
That's way better. That's way better.
Oh yeah, yeah. I know. Everyone tells me they're just like, yeah, I pay 40%. It's like, holy shit.
Oh yeah, 40%. So 30. Biden is trying to bring it back to about 40%. It was at 37.9 or 37 point whatever. He wants to bring it back to about 40. And then where you really get screwed, not in Florida, because Florida has no state tax, but like if you live in New York, you're paying.
It's the ones that have is it federal?
No, so federal is your tax that everybody has to pay.
Yeah.
But then state tax can be up to 10%.
Yeah, so it's the state on top. Yeah.
And then you can have, if you like live in New York City, you can have an additional, I think it's 4 or 5% that's city tax because you live in Manhattan. And there's other taxes. Of course, you're paying sales tax as well. You're paying property tax on your property. So if you own like for example, this building, the Redcon1 building is $250,000 a year in taxes to own the building. Even if you own it cash, you're paying $250,000 a year to own it. So when you add it all up, especially if you're living in Manhattan, you own property in Manhattan, you're basically paying 60% or more of your money into taxes. So it's pretty wild. Pretty wild.
It's those big world problems that gets in there.
Oh my God. It's crazy. Okay. It's crazy. That's why so many people are moving. New York has fallen apart, right? It's a disaster area now. So people who are there are now moving here to Boca, to South Florida, because they're saving so much money. So imagine if you make, let's just say you make $1 million a year. And a lot of these Wall Street guys make that kind of money. That means you're paying, because you're living in the city, $140,000 a year just for your city and state tax. So for them, they're like, well, why am I here in this shitty city, this dump in New York that it used to be the Apple, the Big Apple, the heart of the, people would say it's the center of the universe, center of the world, right? Well, now it doesn't seem like it so much. So like, why am I here for $140,000 a year? I can get the biggest penthouse apartment on the beach in Miami. I'd rather go there. And that's happening a lot right now.
And Florida was one of the first places, or like one of the only states, I guess, that was like open.
Yeah.
Throughout.
Yeah, we have a great governor. Governor Ron DeSantis got a lot. People were pretty critical initially, and now a lot of people are moving here for that reason. That we are much more open here. And interestingly enough, when you compare it to like California, which is significantly more closed and restrictive, that our numbers are better than theirs. Can't make sense of any of this stuff. Who knows?
It's a crazy situation. I mean, we're doing pretty well here in New Zealand, though. That's because we don't have many people, but that's all good.
A lot of space. You have social distancing built in.
Yeah, we got our biggest city is, I think, 2 million people, and then the other 3 million of the population spread across the country. So it's we've had a pretty good job, and we're an island in the middle of nowhere, so people can't really just come here easily. So yeah, it's well, thank you for coming on. It was a great conversation, and it sounds like we've got plenty more to look forward to. And thank you for taking the time.
Brand of the year 2021, baby. That's the goal. That's the goal. Thank you, Shane.
Thanks again.
Thank you, buddy.